The kitchen was supposed to be my sanctuary. After 12 years of marriage, it was the one place where Taryn and I could still share a laugh, even when everything else felt strained. So when I came home early from the hardware store that Tuesday afternoon and heard her giggling with our neighbor Lana, I figured I'd walk into something harmless. Maybe they were planning another one of those neighborhood barbecues that I'd inevitably end up manning the grill for. I should have known better. Honestly, Lana, sometimes I think I'd give Reid away for free, Taryn was saying, her voice carrying that particular tone she used when she thought she was being clever. He's like an old couch, comfortable enough, but you wouldn't mind trading up. The laughter that followed made my stomach tighten. I stayed in the hallway, keys still in my hand, listening. Well, Lana's voice was honey-sweet with an edge I'd never noticed before. If you're giving him away for free, I'll take him. The silence that followed stretched like a rubber band about to snap. Then Taryn's nervous laugh filled the space. Ha! Very funny, Lana. You're kidding, right? Am I? That's when I knew. Standing there in my own hallway, still wearing my work shirt with Dave's Hardware stitched above the pocket, I understood that my wife of 12 years had just been propositioned by our 24-year-old neighbor, and she was considering it. I walked into the kitchen like I owned the place, because technically I still did. Hey, ladies, what's so funny? Taryn spun around, her face flushed. She was still beautiful at 36, all sharp angles and calculated charm. Her corporate PR job had taught her how to control her expressions, but I caught the flash of panic before she smoothed it away. Reid, you're home early. She glanced at Lana, who was perched on our kitchen counter like she belonged there. We were just talking about the Hendersons' new fence. You know how ugly it is. Lana smiled at me, and for the first time I really looked at her. Blonde hair that caught the afternoon light, green eyes that seemed to hold secrets, and a confidence that belonged to someone twice her age. She'd moved in next door 6 months ago, fresh out of college with some kind of social media job that let her work from home. Taryn had taken to her immediately. Actually, Lana said, sliding off the counter with feline grace, we were talking about much more interesting things than fences. The tension in the room was thick enough to cut with a knife. Taryn shot Lana a warning look, but the younger woman just smiled wider. I should get going, Lana continued, moving toward the door. As she passed me, she let her fingers brush my arm. Think about what I said, Taryn. Some offers don't stay on the table forever. She left through the back door, and I watched her walk across our small yard to the house next door. Her parents had bought it for her as a graduation gift, and she'd turned it into something that looked like it belonged in a magazine. Everything about Lana Merrick was polished, perfect, and apparently available. What was that about? I asked Taryn, though I already knew. Nothing. Girl talk. You know how Lana is. She says things for shock value. I nodded like I believed her, but my mind was already working. 12 years of marriage teaches you things about your spouse. The way Taryn touched her neck when she was lying. The way she avoided eye contact when she felt guilty. The way she was doing both right now. I'm going to grab a shower, I said. Long day at the store. Sure, I'll start dinner. As I headed upstairs, I heard her phone buzz, then her voice low and urgent. Evan, we need to talk. Something's come up. Evan. I'd heard that name before, whispered into phone calls that ended abruptly when I entered the room. Taryn's co-worker, she'd said. Someone from the office she occasionally grabbed drinks with after work, someone who was apparently important enough to call when she felt threatened. In our bedroom, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the framed photo on the nightstand. Our wedding day, both of us young and stupid and convinced we'd beat the odds. Taryn in white, me in a rented tux that was too tight in the shoulders. We looked happy. We looked like people who would never hurt each other. Funny how wrong you can be. I opened the nightstand drawer and pulled out the envelope I'd been carrying around for 3 weeks. The divorce papers my lawyer had drawn up after I'd finally admitted to myself what I'd known for months. Taryn was cheating. The late nights at the office, the sudden interest in her appearance, the way she flinched when I touched her, all the classic signs I'd been too proud or too stupid to acknowledge. But now I had confirmation. Not just about the affair, but about how little respect she had left for me. Talking about giving me away like I was a piece of furniture she'd grown tired of. Laughing about it with our neighbor, who apparently saw me as some kind of consolation prize. The shower could wait. I had something more important to do. I walked back downstairs, envelope in hand. Taryn was at the stove, stirring something that smelled like the pasta sauce she made when she felt guilty about something. Her phone was face down on the counter, silent now. Taryn. She turned, and I saw her eyes go straight to the envelope. What's that? I set it on the kitchen table, right where Lana had been sitting 20 minutes earlier. Divorce papers. I had them drawn up 3 weeks ago. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The wooden spoon clattered to the floor. Taryn stared at the envelope like it might explode. "Reid, what are you talking about? We can work through whatever. I know about Evan." The words hung in the air between us. Taryn's face went through a series of expressions. Shock, denial, calculation. I watched her decide how to play this. "I don't know what you think you know, but I know enough." I pulled out one of the kitchen chairs and sat down. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" She moved toward me, her hand reaching out like she was going to touch my face. I leaned back, and her hand dropped. "Reid, please, let me explain. It's not what you think. What I think is that you've been having an affair with your coworker for at least 6 months. What I think is that you just told our neighbor you'd give me away for free. What I think is that you've been lying to me for so long, you've forgotten how to tell the truth." Tears started forming in her eyes, but I'd seen this performance before. Taryn cried when she wanted something, not when she felt something. It was just talk. Lana was being ridiculous, and I was playing along. You know how she is. Actually, I don't, but I'm starting to learn. I stood up and headed for the door. Behind me, I heard Taryn's voice, higher now, more desperate. "Where are you going?" "Out. You've got some thinking to do." "Reid, wait. We can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can—" I turned back to her, and whatever she saw in my face made her stop talking. 12 years, Taryn. 12 years I've been the reliable guy, the one who fixes things, the one who doesn't make waves. You want to give me away for free? Fine. But I get to decide what that costs you. I left her standing in our kitchen, next to the envelope that would change everything. As I walked to my truck, I saw a curtain twitch in Lana's window. She was watching, probably wondering what kind of chaos she'd just set in motion. She was about to find out. I drove to the Galleon, the bar where everyone in our small Maine town eventually ended up when they needed to think or drink or both. It was early enough that the after-work crowd hadn't arrived yet, just a few regulars nursing their usual spots at the bar. My phone buzzed with a text from Taryn. "Please come home. We need to talk." Then another. "I'm sorry, I never meant for you to hear that." And a third. "Reid, please, don't do anything stupid." Too late for that, I thought. I'd already done the stupid thing 12 years ago when I married someone who saw me as disposable. But stupid could be fixed, and I was very good at fixing things. I ordered a drink and started planning. Grant Sullen found me at the Galleon 2 hours later, nursing my third drink and staring at my phone. Taryn had sent 14 more texts, each one more frantic than the last. The progression was almost funny. Denial, anger, bargaining, more anger, then back to bargaining. She was hitting all the stages of grief except acceptance. "You look like a man with a story," Grant said, sliding onto the bar stool next to me. He was my oldest friend, the kind of guy who could read trouble on your face from across a room. We'd worked construction together before my back injury forced me into retail, and had moved into IT work that paid better, but bored him senseless. "Taryn's having an affair," I said without preamble. "Our neighbor wants to take her place, and apparently I'm the booby prize in this whole arrangement." Grant signaled the bartender for a drink. "Well, that's a Tuesday night I didn't see coming. You want to talk about it, or you want to do something about it?" That was Grant. Straight to the point. No wasted sympathy. It's why we'd stayed friends through everything. "What kind of something did you have in mind?" He grinned, and I remembered why Taryn had never liked him. Grant had a talent for seeing through people's carefully constructed facades, and my wife had always been uncomfortable around anyone who couldn't be charmed or manipulated. The kind that requires technical expertise and a complete lack of moral qualms. Lucky for you, I've got both. I filled him in on the afternoon's events, including Lana's offer and Taryn's mysterious call to Evan. Grant listened without interruption, occasionally nodding like pieces of a puzzle were falling into place. "So, the question is," he said when I finished, "how far are you willing to go?" "What do you mean?" "I mean, do you want to just catch them in the act and use it in the divorce? Or do you want to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of people they are?" I thought about Taryn's laugh when she talked about giving me away, about the way Lana had touched my arm like I was already hers for the taking, about 12 years of trying to be the husband Taryn wanted, only to discover she'd been shopping for a replacement. "Everyone," I said. Grant's grin got wider. "Now you're talking my language." We spent the next hour planning. Grant's IT background made him useful in ways that would have impressed me if they hadn't been so morally questionable. He knew how to recover deleted messages, track locations, and access information that people thought they'd hidden. First things first, he said, pulling out his phone. We need to know what we're dealing with. How long has this been going on? Who else knows, and what exactly they're planning? How do we find that out? Your home Wi-Fi network. I'm betting Taryn's been sloppy about covering her tracks, especially if she's been communicating with both Evan and Lana from home. People always think their home network is safe. Can you access it? Reid, I set up your network 2 years ago when you moved into that house. I still have the admin password because you never changed it. He was right. Technology wasn't my strong suit, and I'd been grateful when Grant had handled all the setup. Now that laziness was about to pay dividends. What about Lana? That's where things get interesting. She's young, she's social media savvy, and she's probably documented everything. Girls like that always do. They can't help themselves. They have to share every detail of their lives online. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a call, not a text. Taryn's name flashed on the screen. Answer it, Grant said. Act normal. Don't let her know you're planning anything. I swiped to accept the call. Hello? Reid, thank God. Where are you? Having a drink. Thinking. Please come home. I made dinner, and we really need to talk about this. About what? Your affair, or the fact that you offered to give me to the neighbor? Silence on the other end. Then, it wasn't like that. You're twisting what happened. Am I? Because it sounded pretty clear to me. Lana was joking, and I was just, I don't know, playing along. You know how she is? She says outrageous things for attention. And Evan? Was that for attention too? Another pause. Longer this time. I don't know what you mean. Sure you do. Your coworker. The one you called right after I left. Reid, you're being paranoid. Evan is just a friend from work. We were supposed to grab drinks tomorrow to discuss a project, and I was calling to cancel because of this. Lies came so easily to her now. I wondered when that had started, or if I'd just been too trusting to notice. I'll be home later, I said. Don't wait up. I ended the call before she could respond. Grant was watching me with interest. She's good, he said. I'll give her that, but she's also scared, which means she's going to make mistakes. What kind of mistakes? The kind where she reaches out to her support network for advice. Evan, Lana, maybe other people we don't know about yet. When people panic, they communicate more, not less. And all that communication leaves traces. We finished our drinks and drove to my house in separate cars. Taryn's car was in the driveway, and I could see lights on in the kitchen and living room. Next door, Lana's house was mostly dark, except for an upstairs window. Give me 20 minutes, Grant said as we stood in my driveway. I'll access your network remotely and see what I can pull from the last few months. Deleted messages, browser history, cloud backups, all the digital breadcrumbs people leave behind. What should I do? Go inside and act like a husband who's hurt but willing to listen. Let her think she can still control this situation. The more comfortable she feels, the more likely she is to make those mistakes I mentioned. I nodded and walked toward my front door. Behind me, I heard Grant's car start up as he drove away to work his technical magic. Taryn was waiting in the living room, curled up on the couch with a glass of wine. She'd changed into the blue dress I'd bought her for our anniversary last year, and her makeup was perfect, despite the tears she'd supposedly been crying. Everything about her appearance was calculated to remind me of better times. How was your drink? She asked, patting the cushion next to her. Educational. I sat down, but not where she'd indicated. I chose the chair across from her instead, maintaining distance. Reid, I know you're angry, and you have every right to be. What you heard today, it wasn't what it sounded like. What was it then? She took a sip of wine, buying time to construct her story. Lana's been going through a rough patch since she moved here. She doesn't know many people, and she's been lonely. Sometimes she says inappropriate things because she's looking for attention or trying to shock people. And you were just humoring her? Exactly. I was trying to be a good neighbor, a good friend. But I can see how it sounded to you, and I'm sorry. It was a reasonable explanation. If I hadn't heard the tone in her voice, seen the look in Lana's eyes, I might have even believed it. What about Evan? What about him? You called him the minute I left the kitchen. Taryn's hand tightened on her wine glass. I called him to cancel our meeting tomorrow. I knew we'd be dealing with this situation, and I didn't want work distractions. What kind of meeting? Just a project review, nothing important. At a bar? What? You said you were supposed to grab drinks. That's not usually where project reviews happen. She was quiet for a moment, and I could see her recalibrating. It was going to be after work. We were going to discuss the Morrison account over drinks, then grab dinner, but like I said, I canceled. More lies, but smoother now. She was finding her rhythm. Reid, I love you. I know things have been strained between us lately, but that doesn't mean I want out of this marriage. What you heard today was just girl talk. Stupid, thoughtless girl talk. She stood up and moved toward me, wine glass in hand. We can get through this. We can be stronger than we were before. My phone buzzed with a text. I glanced at it quickly. Grant, letting me know he was in the system and already finding interesting things. Maybe, I said to Taryn, but I need some time to process all this. Of course, take all the time you need. She leaned down to kiss my forehead, and I caught a whiff of her perfume, the expensive stuff she only wore for special occasions, or for other people. I'm going to take a shower and go to bed, she said. Will you come up later? Probably. I want to watch some TV first, clear my head. She nodded and headed upstairs. I waited until I heard the shower running, then checked Grant's text. Holy crap, you need to see this. Meet me at my place in an hour. I turned on the television and settled in to wait. On the screen, some late-night talk show host was telling jokes to an audience that laughed on cue. Everything perfectly timed, perfectly orchestrated, perfectly fake. Just like my marriage. But unlike the talk show, my situation wasn't going to end with polite applause and a commercial break. It was going to end with the truth, served up in ways that would make Taryn and her friends wish they'd never decided to play games with my life. I was looking forward to it. Grant's apartment was a testament to organized chaos. Computer equipment stacked on every surface. Cables snaking across the floor like digital ivy, and 3 monitors glowing with enough information to power a small intelligence operation. He'd always been thorough, but tonight he'd outdone himself. Sit down, he said without looking up from his keyboard, and prepare to be amazed at how stupid people can be when they think nobody's watching. I pulled up a chair next to his desk. The center monitor displayed what looked like a timeline with dates and times stretching back 6 months. The other 2 screens showed message threads, photos, and browser histories. Let's start with the good news, Grant said. Your wife is definitely having an affair with Evan Slate, her coworker at Morrison and Associates. It started 4 months ago at a company retreat in Portland. He clicked on a folder, and a series of photos appeared. Taryn and a man I didn't recognize sharing drinks at what looked like a hotel bar. In the later photos, they were clearly more than colleagues. She uploaded these to her cloud storage, probably thinking they were private. People always forget that deleted doesn't mean gone. The man was younger than me, maybe 35, with the kind of polished look that came from expensive suits and regular gym memberships. He had his arm around my wife in several photos, and she was looking at him the way she used to look at me. Now for the interesting news, Grant continued, switching to another screen. Your neighbor Lana isn't just some innocent girl next door making inappropriate jokes. She's been in contact with Taryn for months, and their conversations are educational. A message thread appeared, dating back to 2 months ago. Lana. So when are you going to introduce me to this mystery man you keep talking about? Taryn. Soon. Reid's been working late shifts, so we have more opportunities. Lana. I still think you should just leave him. Why drag it out? Taryn. It's complicated. The house, the finances. I need to be smart about this. Lana. Or you could let me help. I told you I think Reid's attractive. If you're done with him anyway. Taryn. Lowell, you're terrible, but not the worst idea you've ever had. I stared at the screen, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. They'd been planning this. Not just the affair, but my replacement. There's more, Grant said quietly. He scrolled down to more recent messages. Lana. I'm getting impatient. When are you going to make your move? Taryn. Evan thinks we should wait until after his promotion comes through. He doesn't want any workplace drama. Lana. And what about Reid? You can't string him along forever. Taryn. I'm working on it. Maybe if I can make him think the marriage is failing naturally, he'll be the one to bring up divorce. Lana. Or I could just seduce him away from you, solve 2 problems at once. Taryn. You're serious about that? Lana. Serious. I've been flirting with him for weeks, and he hasn't noticed. But if you gave me an opening... Taryn. It would solve a lot of problems. Reid gets a consolation prize, I get my freedom, and you get what you want. Lana. Exactly. Everyone wins. That's from yesterday, Grant said. About 2 hours before you came home and heard them talking. I leaned back in my chair, processing what I'd just read. The casual way they discussed dismantling my life, like I was a piece of furniture they were deciding how to dispose of. The calculation behind every interaction I'd had with Lana over the past few months. Every friendly wave, every borrowed cup of sugar, Every time she'd found an excuse to chat while I was working in the yard. "What about Evan?" I asked. "Ah, Evan's the really interesting part." Grant pulled up another screen. Evan Slate, 35, works in corporate crisis management at Morrison and Associates. Divorced last year, pays alimony to his ex-wife, and has a reputation for sleeping with married women. A reputation? I did some digging on social media and found 3 other women in the past 2 years. All married, all ended badly for the husbands. Evan has a type, and apparently that type is someone else's wife. Grant showed me photos from Evan's social media accounts, carefully curated images of expensive dinners, weekend trips, and always a different woman. In several recent photos, I could see Taryn in the background or sitting across from him. "The guy's basically a professional homewrecker," Grant continued, "and he's good at it. Look at this." He pulled up a series of messages between Taryn and Evan from the past week. Evan: "How's the husband situation?" Taryn: "Getting complicated. Lana's been pushing things, and I think Reid's getting suspicious." Evan: "Maybe it's time to accelerate our timeline." Taryn: "What do you mean?" Evan: "I mean, maybe it's time for Reid to catch us, make it his idea to end things." Taryn: "That's risky." Evan: "I've done this before, baby. Trust me. The husband catches the wife cheating, he files for divorce, and everyone moves on. Clean and simple." Taryn: "And if he doesn't react the way you expect?" Evan: "Then we make sure he does. I know how to handle guys like Reid." I felt something cold settle in my chest. They weren't just planning to leave me. They were planning to manipulate me into making it easy for them. "There's one more thing," Grant said. He pulled up a final screen showing financial records. Taryn's been moving money. Small amounts, transferred to a separate account over the past 3 months. She's building a nest egg. "How much?" "About 15,000 so far. Not enough to disappear, but enough to make starting over easier." I stared at the screens full of evidence, feeling like I was looking at the blueprint of my own destruction. Everything carefully planned, every angle covered, every possible reaction anticipated, except one. They'd assumed I'd be the same passive, reliable Reid who'd spent 12 years trying to make everyone else happy. They'd assumed I'd take whatever they gave me and be grateful for it. They were wrong. "So what's the plan?" Grant asked. I thought about Taryn upstairs in our bed, probably texting with Evan about how the evening had gone, about Lana next door, waiting for her chance to swoop in and claim her prize, about Evan, confident in his ability to manipulate another husband into cooperative self-destruction. "We're going to give them exactly what they want," I said, "which is a front row seat to their own destruction. But first, I want to meet this Evan character." Grant grinned. "Now you're thinking like a man with a plan. When?" "Tomorrow night. Taryn said they were supposed to grab drinks to discuss a project. I'm betting that meeting is still happening, even if she told me she canceled it." "And what exactly are you planning to do when you meet him?" I stood up and headed for the door. I'm going to let him think he's winning, right up until the moment he realizes he's not. "Reid," Grant called after me. "Be careful. Guys like Evan are dangerous when they feel threatened." "Good thing I'm not planning to threaten him," I said. "I'm planning to destroy him." I drove home through empty streets, past houses where normal couples were probably sleeping peacefully, secure in their relationships and their futures. I envied them their ignorance, their trust, their belief that the people they loved would never betray them. But I didn't want to trade places with them. Not anymore. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Taryn's car was there, and next door, Lana's house was quiet. I sat in my truck for a moment, looking at the life I'd built, the mortgage I'd paid faithfully, the garden I'd planted, the neighbors I'd tried to befriend. Tomorrow, I'd start tearing it all down. But unlike Taryn and her conspirators, I was going to make sure I controlled the demolition. My phone buzzed with a text from Grant. "Just found something else. Lana's parents don't know about her lifestyle. They think she's a good girl focusing on her career. Might be useful." I smiled in the darkness. It was definitely going to be useful. I walked into my house, past the kitchen where this had all started, up the stairs to the bedroom where my wife was pretending to sleep. She stirred when I got into bed, reaching out to touch my arm. "How are you feeling?" she whispered. "Better," I said. "I think we can work through this." She squeezed my arm, and I heard her sigh with relief. "I love you, Reid." "I love you too," I replied. And for the first time in months, I meant it. I loved the woman I'd married 12 years ago. The woman lying next to me now was someone else entirely, and I was going to make sure everyone knew the difference, starting tomorrow. The galleon was busier on Wednesday night, filled with the usual mix of locals unwinding after work and tourists who'd stumbled onto what they thought was an authentic Maine experience. I'd positioned myself at a corner table with a clear view of the entrance, nursing a drink and pretending to read the local paper. Taryn had left the house at 6:30, claiming she was meeting a client for dinner. She'd dressed carefully, the black dress that made her look professional but approachable, minimal jewelry, the kind of outfit that could transition from business to pleasure without raising questions. She walked through the door at 7:15, followed 5 minutes later by a man who matched the photos Grant had shown me. Evan's slate looked exactly like what Central Casting would order for successful corporate executive. Tall, confident, expensive watch, and the kind of smile that probably closed deals and opened doors. They chose a booth in the back corner, far enough from the bar to have private conversation, but close enough to the emergency exit that they could leave quickly if needed. I watched them settle in, noting the easy familiarity between them, the way Taryn leaned forward when he spoke, the casual touch of his hand on hers. I waited 20 minutes, long enough for them to order drinks and fall into comfortable conversation before I made my move. "Excuse me," I said, approaching their table with my drink in hand and a confused expression on my face. "Taryn, what are you doing here?" My wife's face went through a fascinating series of expressions: shock, panic, calculation, and finally resignation. Evan, to his credit, barely reacted. He looked up at me with mild interest, like I was a waiter asking about appetizers. "Reid," Taryn said, her voice carefully controlled. "What a surprise. This is Evan, my colleague from work. Evan, this is my husband, Reid." Evan stood and extended his hand. His grip was firm, confident, designed to establish dominance. "Nice to meet you, Reid. Taryn's told me a lot about you." "All good things, I hope," I said, matching his grip and holding it just a beat too long. "I don't think she's mentioned you, though." "We work in different departments. I'm in crisis management." "How appropriate," I said, sitting down without being invited. "Mind if I join you? I was just having a drink alone, and this is much better company." Taryn's eyes were wide, but she managed a smile. "Of course. Evan and I were just discussing the Morrison account." "The one that required a dinner meeting?" I asked, signaling the waitress for another round. "Must be some account." Evan leaned back in his booth, studying me. I could see him trying to figure out what kind of threat I represented, whether I was the suspicious husband or just the clueless one making awkward small talk. "It's a complex situation," he said finally. "Sometimes these things require extended discussion." "I bet. What kind of crisis management do you do, Evan?" "Corporate reputation, mostly. When companies find themselves in compromising situations, I help them navigate back to stable ground." "Interesting. So you specialize in cleaning up messes?" "You could say that." The waitress brought our drinks, and I raised my glass in a toast. To cleaning up messes, and to new friends. We drank, and I watched Evan's face. He was good. I had to give him that. Nothing in his expression suggested he was sleeping with my wife, or planning to help her destroy our marriage. He was just a professional colleague having a business dinner that had been unexpectedly interrupted. "So, how long have you two been working together?" I asked. "About 6 months," Taryn said quickly. "Since the Portland retreat." "Ah, the retreat. Taryn came back from that trip in such a good mood. Must have been a productive conference." Evan smiled. "It was. We made some valuable connections." "I bet you did." We talked for another 20 minutes, 3 people having a perfectly normal conversation about work, the weather, and local politics. Evan was charming, intelligent, and completely at ease. Taryn was nervous, but managing to hide it well, and I was gathering intelligence, watching how they interacted, learning how they planned to play this. "Well," I said finally, finishing my drink and standing up, "I should let you two get back to your account discussion. It was great meeting you, Evan." "Likewise. I hope we see each other again soon." "I'm sure we will." I kissed Taryn on the cheek, a gesture that made her flinch slightly, and headed for the door. But instead of leaving, I went to the bar and ordered another drink, positioning myself where I could watch their table in the mirror behind the bottles. The change in their body language was immediate. Taryn leaned forward urgently, her hands moving as she spoke. Evan's relaxed posture shifted to something more alert, more focused. They were clearly discussing what had just happened, trying to figure out if their cover was blown. After 10 minutes, Evan reached across the table and took Taryn's hand. She shook her head at something he said, then nodded reluctantly. He signaled for the check. They left separately. Taryn first, looking shaken, then Evan, 5 minutes later. He walked past me at the bar without acknowledgement, but I caught his reflection in the mirror. He was smiling. My phone buzzed with a text from Taryn. "Running late. Client dinner going longer than expected. Don't wait up. I finished my drink and drove home, where I found Grant waiting in my driveway. "How'd it go?" he asked as we walked into the house. "Exactly as expected. Evan's good at what he does, but he's also arrogant. He thinks he read me perfectly." "And what does he think he read?" "Clueless husband, probably suspicious but easily managed. The kind of guy who'll cause some drama but ultimately fold when presented with the right pressure." Grant grinned. "Little does he know." "Little does he know? What did you find out about tomorrow night?" "Lana's planning a dinner party. Small, intimate, just her, Taryn, and Evan. She sent the invitation this afternoon." "A dinner party at Lana's house?" "Gets better. She specifically mentioned that you'd be working late at the hardware store, so the timing was perfect." I thought about that. A dinner party next door, in full view of my house, while I was supposedly at work. It was bold, reckless, and exactly the kind of mistake Grant had predicted they'd make. "They're getting confident," I said. "Confident people make bigger mistakes. And I've got some ideas about how to help them along." We spent the next hour planning. Grant's technical skills, combined with my knowledge of the house layouts and neighborhood dynamics, gave us options that none of them would see coming. "The key is documentation," Grant explained. "We need evidence that's so clear, so undeniable, that they can't spin their way out of it." "And then?" "Then we make sure everyone who matters sees it. Lana's parents, Taryn's boss, Evan's ex-wife, the neighbors, everyone who should know what kind of people they really are." Taryn came home at 11:30, slipping into bed beside me and whispering apologies about the late meeting. I pretended to be asleep, listening to her breathe, feeling the tension in her body as she lay awake planning her next moves. She had no idea that I was planning too. The next morning she was extra attentive, making my coffee the way I liked it, asking about my plans for the day, suggesting we do something special over the weekend. All the behaviors of someone trying to manage a guilty conscience. "I might have to work late tomorrow," I told her over breakfast. "Dave wants me to help with inventory." "That's fine. I'll probably just stay in, maybe watch a movie. Or you could hang out with Lana. You two seem to enjoy each other's company." Taryn's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. "Maybe. We'll see." I kissed her goodbye and left for work, but not before noticing Lana watching from her window. She waved, and I waved back, playing the role of the oblivious neighbor who had no idea what was being planned. At the hardware store, I told Dave I'd need to leave early the next day for a family emergency. He was understanding. Dave was a good guy who'd given me a job when I needed one and never asked questions about my personal life. But tomorrow night, my personal life was going to become very public. I spent the day helping customers, stocking shelves, and thinking about justice. Not the legal kind, that would come later, when the lawyers got involved, but the immediate, personal kind that comes when people finally face the consequences of their choices. Taryn, Evan, and Lana thought they were the smart ones, the ones in control, the ones writing the script. Tomorrow night, they were going to discover that they'd been cast as the villains in someone else's story. And I was very good at writing endings. Friday evening arrived with the kind of crisp October air that made everything feel sharper, more defined. I left the house at 5:30, making a show of heading to work for the late inventory shift that would supposedly keep me busy until midnight. Taryn kissed me goodbye at the door, already dressed for her quiet evening at home. "Don't work too hard," she said, straightening my collar with the kind of wifely attention she hadn't shown in months. "Just want to get it done. Dave's been good to me. I owe him the effort." "I know. That's one of the things I love about you. You're so reliable." Reliable. The word that had defined me for 12 years, and apparently the quality that made me disposable. I smiled and drove away, watching in my rearview mirror as Taryn waved from the doorway like the perfect suburban wife. I parked at the hardware store, clocked in with Dave, and explained that I had a family emergency that might require me to leave suddenly. Dave, as expected, told me to handle whatever I needed to handle. Small-town bosses understood that sometimes life took priority over inventory. Grant picked me up in his car 20 minutes later. We drove back toward my neighborhood, but instead of going home, we parked 3 blocks away and walked through the woods that bordered the back of our street. Grant had spent the afternoon scouting positions, and he'd found the perfect spot, a small rise behind the houses that gave us a clear view of both my place and Lana's. "Equipment check," Grant said, unpacking his bag. He'd brought 2 cameras with telephoto lenses, a directional microphone that could pick up conversations through windows, and a tablet connected to the home security system he'd helped me install last year. "Lana's been cooking all day," he reported, adjusting the microphone. "Evan arrived an hour ago through the back door, probably parked on the next street over, and Taryn's been texting both of them, coordinating timing." I looked through one of the cameras at Lana's house. The dining room windows were lit up, and I could see figures moving around inside. My wife, my neighbor, and the man who specialized in destroying marriages were having a cozy dinner party 30 yards from where I'd lived for the past 5 years. "There," Grant said, handing me headphones connected to the microphone. "You can hear them now." The voices came through clearly, tinged with laughter and the relaxed confidence of people who thought they were safe. "Can't believe how easy this has been," Evan was saying. "Reid's exactly what I expected. Nice guy, trusting, completely out of his depth." "He's not stupid, though," Taryn replied. "When he showed up at the bar, I thought we were caught." "Please, the man sat down and had drinks with us. If he suspected anything, he would have made a scene." Lana's voice joined the conversation. "I told you he was harmless. I've been flirting with him for months, and he barely notices. He's so focused on trying to make everyone happy that he can't see what's right in front of him." "Well, he's about to get a wake-up call," Evan said. "How do you want to handle the transition?" "I was thinking we could stage something," Taryn replied. "Let him catch us together, make it look spontaneous. Then I play the guilty wife who fell for her coworker, and he gets to be the wronged husband who deserves better." "And that's where I come in," Lana added. "The sympathetic neighbor who helps him through his difficult time. By the time the divorce is final, he'll be grateful to have someone who understands him." "Everyone wins," Evan said. "Reid gets a consolation prize, you get your freedom, and I get what I want without any messy complications." Grant and I looked at each other through the darkness. They were laying out the entire plan, documenting their conspiracy in their own words. "The only question," Lana continued, "is timing. How long do we let this play out?" "Oh, not long," Evan replied. "I'm up for promotion next month, and I don't want any workplace drama affecting that. Let's give it 2 weeks, then trigger the discovery scene." "What about Reid's feelings?" Taryn asked, and for a moment I thought I heard genuine concern in her voice. "What about them?" Evan responded. "Look, he seems like a decent guy, but he's been holding you back for years. You said so yourself. He's comfortable with mediocrity, content to work retail and live in suburbia. You deserve better." "We all deserve better," Lana added. "Reid will be fine. Guys like him always land on their feet." The conversation continued, covering logistics and contingencies with the thoroughness of people planning a corporate merger. They discussed my work schedule, my habits, my likely reactions to various scenarios. They talked about me like I was a problem to be solved rather than a person to be considered. Grant was recording everything, but he was also watching me, probably wondering if I was going to lose control and storm over there. I wasn't. This was exactly what we'd hoped for. A complete documentation of their conspiracy, recorded in their own voices with no possibility of misinterpretation. "Phase 2, Grant whispered, pulling out his tablet. He accessed the security system for my house, activating cameras that would record anyone entering or leaving. Then he pulled up Lana's social media accounts, which he'd been monitoring for days. "She's been posting about her intimate dinner party all day," he said, showing me the screen. "Photos of the food, the table setting, hints about special guests. She can't help herself. She has to document everything." On the tablet, I could see Lana's Instagram story updating in real time, a photo of 3 wine glasses on her dining room table, a shot of herself in a dress that probably cost more than I made in a week, a selfie with Taryn, both of them smiling like they were celebrating something. They were celebrating. They were celebrating the destruction of my marriage and the beginning of their new arrangement. "How much more do we need?" I asked Grant. "We're good on audio, but I want video of them together. Something that makes their relationship undeniable." As if on cue, the 3 figures in Lana's dining room moved to the living room, where the lighting was better and the windows larger. Through the camera lens, I could see Evan with his arm around Taryn, Lana curled up on the other side of him. They looked like a group of friends relaxing after dinner, except for the way Evan's hand was moving along Taryn's back and the way Lana was looking at both of them. "Got it," Grant said, adjusting the camera settings. "High definition, perfect lighting, no question about what's happening." My phone buzzed with a text from Taryn. "Hope work isn't too boring. Love you." I showed the message to Grant, who shook his head in amazement. "She's texting you while she's sitting there with him. That's a special kind of cold." "She's always been good at compartmentalizing," I said. "It's what makes her effective at her job." "And what made her effective at lying to you." We watched for another hour as the 3 of them moved through Lana's house, clearly comfortable with each other, clearly operating as a unit. They weren't just planning to betray me, they were already living the life they intended to have after I was out of the picture. "Seen enough?" Grant asked. I looked through the camera one more time, watching my wife laugh at something Evan said while Lana refilled their wine glasses. 3 people who thought they were smarter than everyone else, who thought they could manipulate and deceive without consequences. "Yeah," I said. "I've seen enough." We packed up the equipment and walked back through the woods to Grant's car. The evidence we'd gathered tonight would be enough to destroy all three of them, but I wasn't ready to use it yet. First, I wanted them to feel secure in their victory. I wanted them to think they'd won, because the higher they climbed, the farther they'd fall. "What's next?" Grant asked as we drove away. "Next, we let them make the first move. They want to stage a discovery scene? Fine. But they're going to discover that the man they thought they knew doesn't exist anymore. And then? Then we show everyone in this town exactly what kind of people they really are." I went back to the hardware store, finished the inventory shift, and drove home at midnight to find the house dark and quiet. Taryn was in bed, apparently asleep, but I could smell wine on her breath and see the careful way she'd arranged herself to look peaceful and innocent. I lay down beside her, listening to her breathing, thinking about the conversation we'd recorded and the photos we'd taken. Tomorrow, I'd start putting the final pieces of my plan into motion. But tonight, I was content to lie next to my wife and imagine the look on her face when she realized that the reliable, predictable Reid she thought she knew had been replaced by someone who understood exactly how the game was played. And I was very good at games. Saturday morning brought the kind of autumn sunshine that made everything look deceptively peaceful. Taryn was up early, humming while she made breakfast, acting like a woman without a care in the world. She'd always been good at compartmentalizing, but watching her flip pancakes while planning my emotional destruction was impressive even by her standards. "You're in a good mood," I said, accepting the coffee she handed me. "It's a beautiful day. I thought maybe we could do something together. Go for a drive, visit that antique shop in Camden you're always talking about." "That sounds nice, but I promised Grant I'd help him move some furniture. Rain check?" "Of course. Maybe I'll call Lana, see if she wants to grab lunch." "Good idea. You two seem to really enjoy each other's company." Taryn's smile flickered for just a moment. "She's been a good friend. It's nice to have someone to talk to." "I'll bet it is," I thought, remembering the previous night's conversation about managing my feelings and timing my destruction. I left the house at 10, ostensibly to help Grant, but actually to put the final pieces of my plan into motion. We had work to do, and not much time to do it. Grant was waiting at his apartment with a laptop, a printer, and a stack of manila envelopes. "Ready to mail some Christmas cards?" he asked with a grin. "What did you put together?" "The greatest hits collection, photos, transcripts, financial records, social media screenshots, everything we've gathered, organized by recipient." He showed me the packages he'd assembled, one for Lana's parents, complete with screenshots of her messages and photos from the dinner party, one for Taryn's boss at Morrison and Associates, including evidence of her affair with a coworker and the financial irregularities Grant had discovered, one for Evan's ex-wife, who apparently had been trying to prove he was hiding assets to avoid alimony payments. "And this," Grant said, holding up a larger envelope, "is for the whole neighborhood. A nice summary of recent events, suitable for distribution at tomorrow's community association meeting." "You're sure about the timing?" "Positive. Lana posted on social media that she's having her parents over for brunch tomorrow. Taryn has that client presentation Monday morning. Evan's promotion review is Tuesday. Everyone will be exactly where we want them when the information hits. We spent the morning preparing the final details. Grant had created a simple website that would go live Sunday night, containing all the evidence we'd gathered along with a timeline of events. He'd also prepared anonymous social media accounts that would begin sharing the information across multiple platforms. "The beauty of this approach," he explained, "is that once it starts, it becomes self-sustaining. People will share it, comment on it, add their own observations. It'll spread faster than we could ever manage manually." "And there's no way to trace it back to us?" "None. I've routed everything through multiple proxies and used completely anonymous accounts. As far as anyone will know, this information just appeared from concerned citizens who felt the community needed to know the truth." My phone rang. Taryn calling from lunch with Lana. "Hey, honey," she said, her voice bright and cheerful. "How's the furniture moving going?" "Almost done. How's lunch?" "Great. Lana's telling me about this guy she's been seeing. Sounds serious." In the background, I could hear Lana's laughter. They were probably enjoying a good joke about how clueless I was, how easy it had been to manipulate me. "That's nice. She deserves someone special." "She does?" "Oh, and she invited us over for dinner tomorrow night. Her parents are visiting, and she wants to introduce them to the neighbors." "Sounds perfect. I'd love to meet her parents." "Great. I'll tell her we'll be there around 6. After she hung up, Grant looked at me with admiration. "They're actually going to have you over for dinner while they're planning to destroy your life. That's either incredibly bold or incredibly stupid." "Both," I said, "but it works for us. I want to look Lana's parents in the eye when they find out what kind of daughter they raised." We finished our preparations and spent the afternoon conducting surveillance. Taryn and Lana had lunch, then went shopping together, acting like best friends planning a future that didn't include inconvenient husbands. Evan met them at a coffee shop later, and the three of them sat outside in the sunshine, looking like any other group of friends enjoying the weekend. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, Grant observed, watching through binoculars as Evan kissed Taryn goodbye in full view of anyone who cared to look. Why should they? As far as they know, I'm the only one who might object, and they think I'm too stupid to figure it out. Are you ready for tomorrow? I thought about the question. Tomorrow night, I'd sit at Lana's dinner table with her parents, making polite conversation while knowing that in less than 24 hours, their daughter's life would be in ruins. I'd smile at Taryn and pretend everything was normal while the evidence of her betrayal was already in the mail to her boss. I'd be friendly to Evan if he showed up, knowing that his ex-wife was about to receive documentation that would cost him thousands in additional alimony payments. Yeah, I said. I'm ready. Sunday arrived gray and drizzly, the kind of weather that made staying inside feel justified. I spent the morning doing normal husband things, reading the paper, watching football, helping Taryn decide what to wear to dinner with the neighbors. She chose a conservative dress that would make a good impression on Lana's parents, completely unaware that those same parents would be receiving a very different impression of her within hours. At 3 o'clock, Grant texted me. Packages delivered. Website goes live at midnight. Point of no return in T-minus 9 hours. I deleted the message and went back to watching television with my wife, who was curled up against my shoulder like she used to do when we were newlyweds. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. She'd made her choices, but she genuinely had no idea what was coming. Then I remembered the conversation we'd recorded Friday night, the casual way she'd discussed managing my feelings and timing my destruction, and the sympathy disappeared. Ready for dinner? She asked at 5:30. Absolutely. I'm looking forward to meeting Lana's family. We walked next door together, Taryn carrying a bottle of wine and me carrying a small bouquet of flowers for our hostess. The perfect suburban couple, being neighborly on a Sunday evening. Lana answered the door in a dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent, all smiles and gracious hospitality. Reid, Taryn, come in, come in. Mom and Dad are so excited to meet you. Lana's parents were exactly what I'd expected. Well-dressed, well-educated people who'd worked hard to give their daughter every advantage in life. Her father was a retired engineer, her mother a former teacher. They were proud of Lana's success, worried about her living alone so far from home, and completely unaware that their investment in her future was about to pay devastating dividends. So, you're the neighbors we've heard so much about, Lana's mother said, shaking my hand warmly. Lana talks about you all the time. All good things, I hope. Oh, yes. She says you've been so helpful since she moved in. It's wonderful when young people find good mentors. Mentors. I glanced at Lana, who was smiling sweetly, and wondered what her parents would think when they discovered exactly what kind of mentoring their daughter had in mind. Dinner was perfectly prepared and expertly served. Lana had gone all out, multiple courses, expensive wine, the kind of presentation that belonged in a magazine. Her parents were clearly impressed with their daughter's domestic skills and social graces. Lana's always been special, her father said during the main course. Even as a child, she had this way of seeing opportunities that other people missed. She's certainly good at reading people, I agreed, watching Lana's face as she realized the compliment had an edge to it. And she's always been honest, her mother added. Sometimes brutally so. We raised her to believe that truth is the foundation of every good relationship. Taryn nearly choked on her wine. I patted her back solicitously, the concerned husband helping his wife through a minor mishap. Are you all right, dear? Lana's mother asked. Fine, Taryn managed. Just went down wrong. The conversation continued through dessert and coffee, touching on careers, local politics, and plans for the future. Lana's parents talked about their hopes for their daughter, marriage to a good man, a successful career, maybe grandchildren someday. They were good people who'd raised what they thought was a good daughter. Tomorrow, they'd learn otherwise. We should probably head home, I said around 9 o'clock. Early day tomorrow. Of course, Lana said, walking us to the door. Thank you so much for coming. It meant a lot to have you meet my parents. Thank you for including us. Your parents are lovely people. They are. I'm lucky to have them. Yes, I said, looking directly into her eyes. You are. Taryn and I walked home in comfortable silence, her arm linked through mine like we were still the happy couple we'd been pretending to be all evening. That was nice, she said as we got ready for bed. Lana's parents seem wonderful. They do. I hope they're proud of the daughter they raised. I'm sure they are. Lana's accomplished a lot for someone her age. She certainly has. I lay awake that night, listening to Taryn sleep beside me, thinking about the packages that were already in the mail, the website that would go live in a few hours, the carefully constructed lives that would start crumbling at dawn. At midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from Grant. Website is live, game on. I deleted the message and closed my eyes. Tomorrow would bring consequences, revelations, and the kind of justice that couldn't be bought or negotiated. Tomorrow everyone would learn what happened when you mistook kindness for weakness, reliability for stupidity, and love for something you could throw away without consequences. I was looking forward to it. Monday morning arrived with the kind of crisp clarity that made everything seem sharper, more defined. I was up early, making coffee and reading the news on my tablet when Taryn came downstairs, already dressed for her important client presentation. Big day today? I asked, handing her a cup of coffee. Huge. This presentation could make or break the Morrison account. She paused at the kitchen window, looking toward Lana's house. Looks like Lana's parents left early. Their car's gone. Probably wanted to beat the traffic back to Portland. Taryn nodded, but I could see something was bothering her. She kept checking her phone, frowning at the screen. Everything okay? Just some weird messages on social media. Probably spam. She kissed me goodbye, the same perfunctory gesture she'd been giving me for months. I'll be late tonight. Client dinner after the presentation. Good luck. I know you'll do great. She smiled and left, completely unaware that her boss had received a package of evidence that morning, or that her social media accounts were about to become very public sources of entertainment. I waited until her car disappeared around the corner, then called in sick to the hardware store. Dave was understanding, as always, and told me to take care of myself. I planned to. Grant arrived 30 minutes later with coffee, donuts, and a laptop loaded with monitoring software. Status report, he said, setting up at my kitchen table. Taryn left for her big presentation. Lana's parents drove home this morning, probably wondering why they received such interesting reading material about their daughter. And I'm officially sick today. Perfect, because things are about to get very interesting. He opened his laptop and showed me what had happened overnight. The website had gone live as scheduled, and the anonymous social media accounts had begun sharing selected pieces of information. Nothing too dramatic at first, just enough to get people's attention and start them asking questions. Lana's Instagram is blowing up, Grant reported. People are commenting on her dinner party photos, asking about her special guests and whether her parents enjoyed meeting them. What kind of comments? The kind that suggest people know more than they're saying. Look at this one. Hope your parents enjoyed learning about your new friends. Some surprises are better than others. I looked at the screen, watching the comments multiply in real time. Someone had clearly received our package and was enjoying the drama. What about Taryn's work? Her boss got the package this morning. I've been monitoring the company's internal communications very carefully and very illegally, and there's definitely activity. Her presentation has been moved to this afternoon, and she's been asked to meet with HR first. My phone rang. Taryn's name appeared on the screen. That was fast, Grant said. I answered. Hey, how's the presentation prep going? Reid. Her voice was tight, controlled, but I could hear the panic underneath. Something's happened. Someone sent my boss some information about me. Lies, but convincing ones. What kind of information? Personal stuff. Photos, messages, financial records. Someone's been stalking me, invading my privacy. That's terrible. What did your boss say? He wants to meet with me in HR this afternoon, before the client presentation. Her voice cracked slightly. Reid, I think someone's trying to destroy my career. Who would do something like that? I don't know. Maybe a competitor or someone who wants my job. But the information, it's been taken out of context, made to look like something it's not. What can I do to help? I don't know. Maybe nothing. But Reid, if anyone contacts you, if anyone asks you questions about me or our marriage, please don't say anything until we can talk. Of course. We're a team, remember? Yes. Yes, we are. I love you. I love you too. Good luck with the meeting. After she hung up, Grant looked at me with admiration. You're good at this. She has no idea you know everything. She's scared. Scared people make mistakes. Speaking of which, look at this. He showed me Lana's phone activity, which he'd been monitoring through the same techniques he'd used on our home network. She'd been frantically calling and texting since 7 that morning, trying to reach her parents, Evan, and several other people. Her parents aren't answering, Grant reported, and Evan's not responding to texts. She's starting to realize that something's very wrong. As if on cue, we heard a car door slam next door. Through the kitchen window, I could see Lana getting out of her car, moving quickly toward her front door. Her usual confident stride had been replaced by something urgent, almost frantic. "Phase 2?" Grant said, pulling up another screen. "Time to turn up the heat." He activated the next round of social media posts, these ones more specific, more damaging. Screenshots of conversations, photos from Friday night's dinner party, financial records showing Lana's lifestyle funded by her parents' generosity. The anonymous accounts began sharing them across multiple platforms, tagging local news outlets and community groups. "How long before this goes completely viral?" I asked. "In a town this size? About 2 hours. By lunchtime, everyone will be talking about it." My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Is this Reid Trenner? I'm a reporter with Channel 8 News. We'd like to speak with you about some allegations involving your wife and neighbors. Can you call me?" "It's starting," I said, showing Grant the message. "Want to bet that Lana and Evan are getting similar messages?" We didn't have to wait long to find out. Through the window, I could see Lana pacing in her living room, phone pressed to her ear. Her body language suggested the conversation wasn't going well. "I almost feel sorry for her," Grant said, watching her through binoculars. "She has no idea how much worse this is going to get. She made her choices." "True, and speaking of choices, look who just pulled into her driveway." Evan's BMW turned into Lana's driveway, and the man himself got out looking considerably less polished than usual. His hair was disheveled, his shirt wrinkled, and his confident stride had been replaced by quick, nervous movements. "Emergency meeting," Grant observed. "This should be interesting." We watched through the cameras as Evan hurried to Lana's front door. She let him in immediately, and within minutes they were in her living room, clearly in heated discussion. Grant adjusted the directional microphone, and their voices came through the speakers. "Complete disaster," Evan was saying. "My ex-wife's lawyer called this morning. They have financial records, photos, everything. She's going to take me back to court." "My parents won't answer their phone," Lana replied, her voice higher than usual. "And there are things on social media, people saying things about me, about us." "What kind of things?" "Someone knows about Friday night, about Taryn, about the plan. Someone was watching us." "That's impossible. We were careful." "Were we?" "Because someone has photos, Evan. Photos of all three of us together." There was silence for a moment, then Evan's voice, lower and more dangerous. "This didn't happen by accident. Someone's targeting us." "You think?" "I know. The question is who and how much they know." "What about Reid? Could he have figured it out?" "Reid? Please. The man's a hardware store clerk who couldn't find his way out of a paper bag. This is professional, coordinated. Someone with resources and technical skills." Grant grinned at me. "Professional and coordinated. I like that." On the screen, we could see Lana and Evan moving around her living room, both of them agitated, both clearly trying to figure out how their perfect plan had gone so wrong. "We need to do damage control," Evan said. "Deny everything, claim it's all fabricated, maybe suggest it's a competitor trying to hurt my career." "What about Taryn? She's supposed to call after her meeting." "If she's smart, she'll stick to the script. Claim harassment, invasion of privacy, anything that shifts the focus away from what we actually did." "And if she's not smart?" "Then she goes down alone. I'm not sacrificing my career for someone else's mistakes." Grant and I looked at each other. Even in crisis, Evan was thinking about how to protect himself at everyone else's expense. It was exactly what we'd expected from him. My phone rang again. This time it was a number I recognized. Maggie, my sister. "Reid, what the hell is going on? I just got off the phone with 3 different people asking me about Taryn and some neighbor girl." "What did they want to know?" "Everything. How long you've been married, whether you seemed happy, if I knew about any problems. Reid, there are photos online of Taryn with some guy, and people are saying she's been cheating." "Photos?" "Clear ones. Her with some corporate-looking guy, looking very cozy. And there's stuff about financial irregularities, hidden accounts, all kinds of things. Is this true?" I looked at Grant, who nodded. The information was spreading exactly as we'd planned, through social networks and family connections, reaching everyone who mattered. "I don't know what to believe right now, Maggie. Everything's happening so fast. Reid, if this is true, if she's been cheating on you, you need to protect yourself. Financially, legally, all of it." "I know. I'm trying to figure out what's real and what's not." "Well, figure it out fast. This town's talking, and once that starts, it doesn't stop." After she hung up, Grant showed me the latest social media activity. The story was spreading beyond our town, picked up by regional news outlets and shared across multiple platforms. Lana's carefully curated online presence was being dissected by strangers. Taryn's professional reputation was crumbling in real time, and Evan's name was being connected to a pattern of behavior that would follow him for years. How do you feel? Grant asked. I thought about the question. 12 hours ago, I'd been the reliable husband, the steady neighbor, the guy everyone could count on to not make waves. Now I was the architect of a carefully orchestrated destruction that would reshape multiple lives. I feel, I said finally, like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Outside, Evan was leaving Lana's house, moving quickly toward his car. His phone was pressed to his ear, and his face showed the kind of stress that came from watching your carefully constructed world fall apart. Think he's calling Taryn? Grant asked. Probably, but it won't matter. By the time she gets out of her meeting with HR, this will be everywhere. As if to prove my point, another car pulled into Lana's driveway. This one had a news station logo on the side. Showtime, Grant said. We watched as a reporter and cameraman got out, approached Lana's door, and began setting up for what would probably be a very uncomfortable interview. Ready for the finale? Grant asked. I looked at the screens showing Lana's panicked face, the growing social media storm, the news crew preparing to broadcast our town's latest drama to a much wider audience. Ready, I said. The reliable Reid they'd all known was gone. The man who'd replaced him was just getting started,